All right, so we're going to look at, I wouldn't say the most important part of a story, but definitely one of the most important parts. And that's denotation versus connotation. Now, you need to know those terms because when I test you, those are the terms I'm going to use. So you want to make sure that you know them. Denotation is the dictionary definition of a word. Notice that they all begin with D. So you want to make sure that you know that denotation is the dictionary definition. You're going to want to write this down, okay? Connotation is the emotional feelings that come with a word, okay? And there's three types. There's negative connotation, there's a neutral connotation, and then there's a positive connotation. Okay? These feelings, negative, neutral, or positive, actually create the tone of a story, and that's kind of where we're going to focus the lesson. Okay, so let's look at this picture. And yes, my munchkin is not happy. So last week, I told him, I said, okay, we've got to go to school. This is what he did. We have some choices of what we can say. We can say Aiden is crying. We can say he's weeping. We can say he's teary-eyed, hysterical, or he has watery eyes. So let's look at our little chart right here. Let's go with blue. He likes blue. Neutral. These are words that don't really have a strong emotional attachment to them. Whereas positive, that's a really strong emotion, but it's positive emotion. Whereas negative has a really strong emotion, but it's negative. So looking at my choices, all right, Aiden is crying. And the reason I actually attached the picture is because when you go to put these on our graph, positive, negative, neutral, context is kind of important when you go to say, are they positive or negative? All right, so let's start with cry. He's crying. Well, I mean, he is crying. But if he's a story, and the story is that he's got to go to daycare, then, and you want the reader to kind of feel sorry or feel bad that he's got to go to daycare, that's not really effective to some extent. So we're going to want to put cry more maybe here. It does have some emotions, but not really a strong one. So it's closer to neutral. And the author, being me, since I'm saying he's got to go to daycare, wants us to feel bad for Aiden. And so we want to be more towards the negative one. Okay? We want our negative emotions. We want to go, no, Miss Smith, you're making him go to daycare. Okay? Whereas here, it would be, man, he's got to go to daycare, ha, 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 ha. So it's going to be more, cry's going to be more here. Weep. He's weeping. Yeah, he's really not weeping. Okay, that's almost, it is a synonym, but it's almost inaccurate for what he's doing. So we're going to put that more near cry. Weep is what you do when you break up with someone you love. Okay. Teary-eyed. Okay, that's a neutral term. There's no real emotion tied to that either. Hysterical, on the other hand, that's a strong word. Okay. We look at Aiden, he goes, man, he's hysterical. So we're looking positive or we're looking negative. And so you have to ask yourself, is it accomplishing the purpose of making us go, Aiden should not have to go to daycare? So we would put that here. And then watery eyes is, again, close to neutral. All right, let's look at Riley. Okay, and again, we have our little line about where to put them, positive, negative, and then neutral. And remember that context is important. And in this one, we're looking for the word that shows that he is happy he gets to play with his toys. Okay, so now we're going to look for the one that is the most positive. So he's happy, joyful, cheerful, ecstatic, or overjoyed. Okay, so these are a little bit closer than the other ones, so we'll have to look at them pretty carefully. He's happy. Look at that. Look at that face. He's definitely happy, isn't he? Okay. The question is, does it evoke a strong emotional attachment in you, the listener? So push pause. Okay. And on your paper, I actually want you to draw this chart that I have right here. And I want you to chart those. Okay. All right, so I'm going to give you a second to push pause right now. And then once you guys have them plotted, you can play me again. All right, so happy. Let's see what you guys did. Raise your hand if you did happy close to, let's put neutral right there. Happy right there. Okay, if this was me, I would do okay. Looking at context, and part of it could be is I was there, knowing how ecstatic he was that he got to play with these toys after being in timeout. So context, again, is important. But when I look at these words, being joyful doesn't really have a strong emotional feeling. Overjoyed and cheerful are about the same for me. But he is happy, and so that one's a little bit more positive, whereas ecstatic is he's very, very, very happy. Okay. Authors intentionally choose these words in their stories to do the same thing. They either want you to feel a negative emotion, they want you to feel a positive emotion, or they want you to go, I don't care, a neutral emotion. Okay, now looking at these words right here, I chose this one because authors a lot of times want to manipulate the reader. And you're thinking, okay, well then, why do we have skinny, slender, thin, and slim here under Riley? Well, if you want to manipulate the reader, you're going to, depends on what you want, you're either going to, make them mad, make them happy, whatever. So we're going to pretend that this is one of those times where the reader wants to emphasize the looks of someone. So we're looking at Riley. You want to choose the word that is the least offensive to me. Okay, I'm his mother. Okay, and I don't want you guys to be making fun of my child. Okay, in the way that he looks. So the positive would be the least offensive, and then most offensive. So pushing pause, I want you to rate skinny, slender, thin, and then slim on this scale. So go ahead and do that now. Okay. Looking at your class, neutral, okay, what would you have done in neutral? Okay. If you think about positive versus negative connotation, Most offensive, if you had said, man, Riley looks so skinny, I probably would have been like, no, he's not skinny. Okay, because skinny to me brings to mind the picture of someone who doesn't eat. And you're like, so you're telling me I'm not feeding my child? So I would have put offensive, most offensive, as skinny. Okay. Same thing with maybe thin. It would be closer to skinny on there, almost maybe interchangeable. Because when you say, Miss Smith, you've got Riley kind of thin there. No, he's not thin. Again, the picture that comes to mind is someone who doesn't feed a child. And so those two words, the connotation is very negative because it's almost insulting. But now, slim and slender. I would almost put slim under neutral because it could, it's like, okay, so he's slim. There's no positive or negative to that. It's like, whatever. But now slender, I would have put under the least offensive because when I see slender, it's like, okay, I'm feeding him. He's just, his body type, he's just a tiny kid. His bone structure is more petite. So I would deal with slender. Authors do this every single time when they are trying to manipulate the reader. Speech writers, ad writers, when you see things on TV, every word is chosen with care to get you to feel something. And it's important to watch these things as you go through and read because you're like, okay, are the emotions that I'm feeling really what I'm feeling, or am I being manipulated into feeling them? All right, how it works. The internet users fool people into feeling unintelligent online. Okay. Sentence 2. Internet trolls trick people into feeling stupid online. Okay. Now, I got a couple of these examples, this one and then the graphic from the other slide from a YouTube video. It wouldn't let me find his graphics, so I just hand wrote it. But I didn't want to plagiarize, so that's why it's on there. These two sentences are the same thing. But when we look at this one, users fool people into feeling unintelligent. Okay, you're like, okay, users, that's people who use the internet, fool, okay, unintelligent. So it's not really insulting. But when you do the second one, internet trolls trick people into feeling stupid online, you're definitely manipulating the reader and you're getting them to feel angry towards internet trolls. Okay? And right or wrong, that's what's going on. And that's one thing to watch for when authors are writing. The reason that the denotation and the connotation is so important is because of our rhetorical triangle. Remember this from last 9 weeks. We're not done with it. Okay? You have your writer who looks at the situation, okay? And he goes, okay, what logic do I need to use to accomplish my purpose? Okay? What emotion do I need to evoke to accomplish my purpose, and what literary elements do I need to use? And he takes, or she takes, all of that into account to create tone. And tone is the author's feelings about that subject. How does he or she feel about what she's writing about? Okay, so this is the graphic I took from the YouTube video. All right. So this example is so that you can kind of see it visually in pictures, and then we'll look at it with actual words. All right. So the question is, what is the writer's attitude towards cursive writing in school? Hello, class. My name is Mr. Troll. This year we will be learning cursive, which you will use all the way through high school and college. Okay, so there's our teacher, and then there's the nice, neat writing. This is in the 3rd grade. And just looking at this, you can go, okay, well, his name is Mr. Troll. The teacher looks not really very professional there, but so But that's what's in your mind. And then the next picture shows our student diligently working, trying to create his letters. Notice visually the different pictures there. The student, right there, he's got his tongue out. He's working hard, okay? But here, our teacher has this almost evil grin, like, ha! So right now you're thinking, okay, tone-wise, the author is not thrilled with teachers. All right, the next one, oh, look, he's sweating. And he's working hard, and he has these nice, neat letters. He's in the 6th grade. He's been working hard. And he's so excited. Look, he has succeeded in mastering his skill. So he's got his tears. High school comes up, and he's got his new teacher. Welcome to freshman English. No assignments written in cursive will be accepted, and all papers must be typed. And then look at our guy over here crying in tears. So looking at this, write on your paper, what attitude does the writer have towards school? And then tell me why you think that. So push pause, give you a chance to write that into your notes, and then continue me. Here's an example in actual literature. So this is from Night that you read last year. He says, "Never shall I forget that night, the first night in camp, which has turned my life into one long night, 7 times cursed and 7 times sealed. Never shall I forget those moments which murdered my God and my soul and turned my dreams to dust. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am condemned to live as long as God himself. Never." So look at the words in red. And then what I've done is I've looked up synonyms for these words. Never shall I forget that evening, the first evening in camp, which has turned my life into one lengthy nighttime. 7 times blasted out and 7 times closed. Never shall these moments which killed my God and my soul and turned my dreams to powder. Never shall I forget these things, even if I am punished to live as lengthy as God himself. Never. So they're synonyms, so they're the same words. But looking at how it's changed, one, it starts out, instead of being that he's being tortured. I mean, even the tone at the very beginning is, hey, something's wrong. In the second one, the tone is like, well, is he camping? It's almost like a good memory. And then you realize, okay, it's not when you get to the blasted out part, but it's almost like with the synonym example, the blame has shifted. In the original one, you can tell that it was the Nazis that are to blame for everything. He's the victim here. But in the second one, you're like, okay, he's being punished, killer. It's not the same emotion because you're not looking at the Nazis as this. He doesn't seem as much of a victim. And so you can see the importance of vocabulary. As you go through stories, pay attention to the words. It is really tied to everything that you're going to need for your rhetorical devices, your literary devices, your tone, your mood, your theme. It's all nice one big picture. Okay.